The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the pristine marble hallway of the high-rise corporate tower. The sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, scattering gold light across the glass walls that gleamed like mirrors of power. Inside the executive boardroom, the young CEO Sierra Langford, 32, elegant in her white blazer and navy heels, was preparing to unveil a groundbreaking innovation. Her confidence filled the room like perfume. Everyone believed she was unstoppable, but fate had a strange way of humbling even the proudest hearts. Downstairs on the same morning, Mr. Omar Reyes, a 61-year-old janitor with salt and pepper hair and weary eyes, wiped the marble floors in silence. His uniform was faded, his hands cracked from years of cleaning other people's success. In his pocket was a small, tattered brown notebook held together by tape and hope. To everyone else, it looked like trash. But to Omar, it was everything he'd ever dreamed of, pages filled with handwritten sketches, formulas, and ideas he'd spent decades working on during lonely nights in his tiny apartment. He had once studied engineering, long ago, before life took everything away. His job, his wife, his health, and eventually his confidence. Now he swept floors for the same company that had unknowingly grown from the roots of his imagination. If you believe in second chances and the power of kindness, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. That morning, fate placed both worlds, wealth and humility, on a collision course. Sierra was walking through the lobby, talking on her phone, when she accidentally brushed against Omar's cleaning cart. Her eyes darted down at him with irritation. "Be careful, please," she said sharply, and continued walking. A small brown notebook slipped from Omar's cart and landed by her heels. Sierra picked it up, about to return it, but curiosity caught her eye. Inside were rough sketches of circuits, energy diagrams, and equations. She chuckled. "What's this? A janitor's secret invention?" she said softly, mocking it under her breath. Without another thought, she tossed it back toward his bucket. But something about one page lingered in her mind, a unique triangular grid pattern that looked strangely familiar. That night, Sierra couldn't shake off the image. The pattern, it was the same foundational design behind her company's latest AI energy module, the one she had spent millions developing. She dismissed it as coincidence, but curiosity began to itch at her. She retrieved the notebook from the law stand, found the next day, pretending she'd found it lying around. As she turned each page, her heartbeat quickened. Inside, the old notebook detailed a theoretical model for renewable microgrid energy systems, exactly the same principle her research team had used to create her company's flagship product, Ilaran Core, a technology that had made her a global innovator. But the notebook was dated 8 years before the company was founded. Every equation, every conceptual sketch, it was all there, long before her own engineers ever existed. She felt her throat tighten. How was this possible? Sierra called her chief technical officer, Dr. Markin, and showed him the notebook. He turned pale as he compared it with their confidential blueprints. "Sierra, this is the same model," he said quietly. "Not inspired, not similar. It's the original version." He looked up at her. "Where did you get this?" Her mind raced. This notebook, belonging to a janitor, contained the blueprint for the company she now ruled. She was living a dream that might not have even been hers. Guilt swirled in her chest like a storm. She remembered mocking the man who had written these pages, the same man who quietly mopped her floors every morning. That night, Sierra couldn't sleep. The city skyline glowed beneath her penthouse window, but inside her, everything felt dark. She saw her reflection, a woman who'd prided herself on self-made success, now realizing her empire might have been built on someone else's forgotten genius. The next morning, Sierra arrived early, walking into the janitorial closet where Omar was folding rags. He froze, startled by the CEO standing in the doorway. She held the notebook in her hand. "This belongs to you, doesn't it?" she asked softly. Omar hesitated, then nodded. "It's just old ideas, nothing important," he said shyly, lowering his eyes. Sierra's voice trembled. "It's more than important, it's revolutionary." He looked confused. Revolutionary. She took a deep breath. "Mr. Reyes, this notebook holds the foundation of our company's most valuable invention, your model. It's the same system we use today. You wrote this long before we even existed." Omar's mop slipped from his hand. For a long moment he just stared at her, eyes wide, lips trembling. I worked on that years ago," he whispered, "but no one ever believed me. I sent my designs to a few companies. I never even got a reply." His voice cracked. "Eventually I stopped trying." Sierra felt her throat tighten with shame. "You didn't fail, Omar. The world failed to see you." The silence that followed was thick with emotion. The hum of distant elevators and the faint echo of voices outside seemed to fade away. Sierra looked at this man, the forgotten genius in a janitor's uniform, and realized how easily the world judged worth by appearance. Over the next weeks, Sierra secretly launched an internal audit. She discovered that one of her company's original investors had received old prototype submissions from an anonymous engineer years before they founded the company. That investor had died long ago, but Omar's name appeared faintly on a discarded patent form. It was undeniable. Omar's work had planted the seed that had grown into Ilaran's billion-dollar empire. Sierra called an emergency board meeting. The executives stared at her, confused, as she entered the glass room with Omar beside her, still wearing his worn uniform and carrying his notebook. She stood at the head of the table and said clearly, "Ladies and gentlemen, I owe you the truth. The foundation of our core technology came from this man's mind. Omar Reyes deserves the recognition and the rights he was denied." The room erupted in whispers. The shareholders protested, citing legal technicalities, but Sierra's voice cut through the noise. "This company will not stand on stolen dreams, not while I lead it." What followed was weeks of legal struggle and public scrutiny. The story hit the media like wildfire. Janitor's notebook discovered to contain billion-dollar blueprint. People across the world were captivated by the tale of humility, injustice, and redemption. Omar, however, wanted no fame. "I never did it for recognition," he told Sierra quietly. "I just wanted to make something that helped people." Sierra, deeply moved, decided to make things right beyond legal bounds. She offered Omar a partnership, naming him Chief Innovation Consultant with full credit for his original designs. But what truly mattered to Omar was not the title. It was the respect in her eyes, the acknowledgement that his life's work had finally meant something. Months later, during a bright afternoon press conference, Sierra stood before a crowd of cameras with Omar by her side. She announced the company's new foundation, the Raise Initiative, dedicated to funding underprivileged inventors and dreamers who lacked the resources to bring their ideas to life. The audience rose in applause. Tears glistened in Omar's eyes as he whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Sierra replied softly, "Thank you for reminding me what leadership really means." From that day on, the company's culture transformed. Employees began treating every worker, janitors, assistants, interns, with respect. The walls that once separated executives from workers began to fade. People shared ideas freely. The air of arrogance turned into one of gratitude. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the now bustling innovation lab, Sierra found Omar sitting by the window sketching in a new notebook, its cover brand new, its pages crisp with promise. He was smiling. "Working on something new?" she asked. He looked up with a spark in his eyes she hadn't seen before. "Always," he said, dreams don't retire. The two shared a quiet moment, watching the sky blaze with the colors of hope. For Sierra, it was no longer about profit or pride, it was about purpose. She finally understood that brilliance had no uniform, no title, no status. It could shine from anywhere, even from the hands that cleaned the floor beneath your success. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every click helps spread real stories that remind us to see people not for where they stand, but for what they carry inside. And before you go, I'd love for you to comment below one word that describes what this story made you feel: hope, redemption, humanity, or your own. Your voice might just inspire someone else to believe again. As the sun dipped low behind the glass towers, Omar closed his new notebook, his reflection glowing in the window. He was no longer invisible, and Sierra, the CEO who once mocked him, had become his greatest believer. Together, they proved that greatness isn't born in boardrooms. It's written quietly in forgotten notebooks, waiting for someone kind enough to open the first page.